Just really want to make you aware now of a guide from Resource Efficient Scotland on procurement support. It's a 6-step guide, understanding the project parameters, defining your requirements, very important, finding potential suppliers and contractors, working with suppliers, I mentioned already, during the bid process, quotation review and getting funding. So what are the parameters we need to get right? We need to know the lumens. It's usually better, I think, to specify a lux level or a number of lumens rather than a wattage, because as I've mentioned, the one lamp is not equivalent to another. It depends on the manufacturer, it depends on the quality. So we've really got to make sure that they're going to do the job. We can specify color temperature, but I wouldn't even try doing that until you've actually done a trial with some of the lamps that you're thinking of replacing, if it's a lamp replacement project we're talking about. The other sorts of factors we've got to bear in mind when looking at the project parameters are the operational environment, what it's going to do, is it going to cost us any production time? And we've got to look at any specific health and safety issues, and of course legislative requirements. Defining the requirements and preparing this RFQ, you'll get a copy of this presentation after the event, so I'm not going to run through these in detail. I think it is important to state the assumptions that suppliers should use, which is about the 5th or 6th bullet down, when calculating potential energy savings, if you're asking them for that calculation. You should be able to do it yourselves by now, of course, but you know, if you're going to get like-for-like quotes and assess them fairly, then you've got to have that. Disposal of old lamps and fittings. I've touched on the question of CFLs and mercury. Make sure you build that in if you're not going to do it yourselves, if you don't already have a program in place. Again, it's about getting like-for-like quotes, but making sure everything's covered. Many different ways you can find potential suppliers and contractors. Did some work for Scottish Enterprise a few years ago, assessing the scale of the retrofit market in Scotland, and really there is great depth here. It should be good competition in most areas. There are some hints there about where to find the suppliers. You've got Select, the speaker from Select here today. I'm sure you're all familiar with people like NIC, EIC. The energy technology list is important because that underpins the system of enhanced capital allowances. Products which are on the ETL qualify for the ECA. It's an acronym-rich world, I'm afraid. But the enhanced capital allowances can be quite valuable in some cases, and that's an extra win that you can get and you can build into your business case if you have to prepare this for management. I think it is very important to get providers or potential suppliers in, and absolutely essential if there's rewiring work involved. They need to know how your operation works, what the kind of restrictions on them are likely to be. You've got to allow them to actually open up certain areas of the building so that they can see how it's wired and how the lighting distribution system works. They need to know the windows and see them for themselves. A window is not a window. They may have deeper or less deep reveals. They may have splayed reveals. They need to know about the kind of area within a building that a window actually practically lights, and for how many hours of a day, because a north-facing window is very different from a south-facing window. The Victorians, of course, knew this. I come from Birmingham, and it's a Victorian city, and all the factories were lit not with south lights. Eco developers will tell you these days it's right to have huge amounts of glazing on the southern side. This can lead to overheating if it's not correctly shaded, but also the light can be too much. Victorian factories all had north lights because it gives you a much more consistent lighting through the day. So these are the sorts of things we would hope that suppliers would be aware of at the very least. They would also need to know the price you pay for electricity if they're involved in the payback calculations and not doing it yourselves. Pretty simple to compare quotes against your requirements, but it is incredibly common for contractors to leave out bits they don't like. I specified something the other day for some French doors, and I said a multi-point locking system, and it came back without that in because it was an expensive thing and he didn't want it in his quote. So do check very carefully that each aspect of your RFQ has been met. And lastly, funding. We have a guide on sources of finance, how to fund your resource efficiency projects. Again, a free download from Resource Efficient Scotland.